This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. Today is Wednesday, March 1st, 2023. It's 5:30 PM, and we're going to say the pledge. Everybody's ready.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, Randy, please.
Okay.
Can you get a second?
Okay, trustee Ketta. Here. Trustee Winslow.
Present.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Trustee Martz.
Present.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Secretary is here and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, our attorney Roger Zappa, and committee member present is Tom Bronken from our Library Advisory Committee.
Great, thank you. Any emails from the public? that
We
you
did
need to
not,
share?
we did not
Okay.
have any.
Okay. Does anybody wish to talk for 3 minutes before we get started? Feel free, come on up. Name and address, please, sir.
Hi there, I'm Nathan Lowen, 225 Forestville Basin Trail. Just quick, I'm sorry I got to take my kid to hockey here, so I'll actually be leaving. But I've just been looking at the packet for today, and I got a little bit frustrated when I started seeing about the survey study that needs to get done. And I was just looking at some of those options as they're going to be like a possible, I know it's possible, but shutting down the Forestville Road or having us rerouting towards Big Bay, which would be kind of bad for me. I work at Bell as a surgeon, and I wouldn't really be able to get there for emergencies and that sort of a thing. It'd be a struggle. But then I start to wonder, that whole survey is going to be done for this possible 240 homes that want to go in there, and obviously our road can't handle that. I know we've talked about this over and over, and that's the whole reason for the survey, but I just don't understand why we keep talking about it. If a PUD, I know this isn't a zoning meeting, but a PUD has to follow these certain options or these certain criteria, and one of them is that it isn't putting excessive stress on a road, which obviously it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having a meeting here talking about having to do a $72,000 study to make our road bigger so that we could possibly put 240 homes in there. Overall, I'm just kind of frustrated with the whole development and the possibility of drastically changing my area, and it doesn't seem to comply with the zoning ordinances. But I wanted to make that be known. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have to leave now, Mr. Lowen?
I do.
Okay.
I can
We are
I'm
gonna
gonna
talk
get
about
him
this
to.
after.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go to hockey and then come back,
Okay.
and hopefully, and then I gotta go back to hockey. Maybe my wife can pick him up somewhere in there. So yeah, I'm gonna try to come back. Appreciate your time, and
Otherwise,
not,
it'll be
it's-
on Zoom,
Yeah.
you can watch it.
It'll be on YouTube right
it's on
after.
Zoom too?
No,
Well, I
well,
mean, sorry.
it'll be on YouTube right after. Just got to upload it, and then it should be on YouTube within
I think I
45
can-
minutes of the after
I
the
can probably be
meeting.
back in like 20 minutes, so I'll try.
Okay. You might be fine.
Yeah. All right, I appreciate your
Okay,
time. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else like to say anything? Sure, feel free, come on up. It's your time.
Hi. Susan and John Spalding, and we're here from 285 Forestville Basin Trail, Nate's neighbor. And I guess I'm just here for the same concern as well, because we have a road full of professional individuals. A lot of them are physicians, but business owners, business managers. And if they were to change the usage of Forestville Basin Road exiting, entering on Wright Street, that would cause a great deal of inconvenience, also financial harm. I talked about this before. We'd be more than 5 miles away to the nearest fire station. And so that would double all of our homeowners insurance, but the inconvenience of having to drive out to 550 and then around, when most of us do have to be in the downtown area for employment reasons. So that's why I'm here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else? Okay, sounds good. Any comments based on what you heard? 'Cause we are gonna talk about this later. John, you want to?
I just want to say real briefly, nobody is considering, at this time, to my knowledge, the option that is being expressed as a concern tonight. So hopefully we can at least put people at ease for the moment. And then we'll see where the conversation goes in a little bit. We're on a real tight timeline with a lot of pressure to try to do the right thing, and that's what I'm hoping we're going to consider in a little bit.
Good, thank you. All right, so we will have the consent agenda tonight, which consists of approval of regular meeting minutes of February 15th, 2023. We have bills payable amount of $184,384.81. We've got the draft minutes from the Peter Boyd Public Library Board meeting of February 21st. I did include a close-up survey talking about hiring, so that was kind of interesting. Hazardous waste collection schedule from the solid waste. They've already changed that, I think, once this year. If you remember, I went to the Respect Marquette County Coalition, well, I think you remember, out at the island. These were the notes from that conversation, so I included those. And a very large packet from solid waste, what they're working on. It's a little more difficult to deal with their meetings right before ours now, so I don't know that I'll even have time to zoom in the future, but we'll see. So I did put their 215 packet in there.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And we just need approval of the remainder of the agenda unless anybody has any changes.
I'll move. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest in this agenda, so we can proceed to the library report. Mr. T.
Good evening. Very short report tonight. They didn't have a special presentation, and really the only item that was had a lot of discussion was about their board action. They brought for a first reading and also passed something to make the library property a drug, alcohol, and tobacco-free campus. They had designated smoking areas away from the building a little bit, but they couldn't get people to use them. People were smoking right outside the door. There were actually people smoking and vaping inside the library, and the staff was getting tired of policing it all. And so they just figured that they had no other choice but then just to make the whole campus drug, alcohol, and smoke-free. So that means they can still go out to the sidewalk and smoke if they want to, but they can't anywhere in the parking lot or anywhere around the building. So that was the only board action that was really notable.
How are you dealing with the waste then that they might be leaving? They're just gonna stomp them out on the ground and somebody's gotta go clean them up?
That didn't come up, but I'm sure that's what's going to have to happen. Yeah, somebody's got to sweep that stuff up. Any questions?
Anything?
Thank you.
That's great. We appreciate you coming down, Tom. Okay. Ms. Cambenzi has agreed to join us tonight. She was going to be here in person and just found out she's got a new job tonight. I mean, she found out tonight she's got a new job, so we sent her the Zoom link and she's going to visit with us a little bit. I'd asked her to give us a little perspective of what she left and what she sees happening and what we can do, information for us, any tidbits or tips that we can use going forward as a township. So welcome.
Well, thank you, Lynn, and certainly thank you to all of the trustees for allowing me this time, but more importantly, just for allowing me to, be a representative and for working with me throughout my short 5 years in Lansing. And as it came to an end, of course, there's a lot of items that I would have loved to have gotten done. We were working on a great mining package with Senator McBroom. And, that's one of the things that, when terms come to an end, new legislators get elected, it changes the dynamics. And these were bills that, would put more money back into our locals. They would put more money back into research and design. And they would kind of make the state a partner with our mining companies instead of being more of an observer. And a lot of this came from watching the success in Minnesota and what they do to kind of nurture those relationships. So there's there's always a sadness, and even in local government, every time you go on and off a board, you don't get to finish everything you'd like to. It still comes down to relationships and knowing that Senator McBroom is still down there, and we'll hopefully carry this through and get it done. And people always ask, what's the one thing you learned that was the most valuable thing ever from your experience in Lansing? And that is just having those relationships, making sure that you are connected to your local elected officials, making sure that you are listening more than you're talking, and making sure that at the end of the day that they know that you're working for them, and you're not working for yourself or anyone else. And that's hopefully what I left office, leaving my constituents with. But I don't think I would have been as successful either if I didn't have that local government experience and really diving into local politics first, where just listening to the comments tonight, these are things that affect people's daily lives. And I think on the state level, sometimes you don't get that intimacy of whether or not what you vote on is really going to get down to where someone lives, or something that would impact them day to day. And you guys, I say this all the time, at the local level, you're really doing the tough work. I mean, you're really having to deal with the issues that make or break your community, build trust, tear down that trust. And I just want to say thank you for doing it. I think oftentimes these can be thankless jobs, but I commend you, Lynn, your leadership, and all of the trustees. Thank you for doing what you do. You've put Marquette Township on the map as a place to be, as a place to live, and you're doing great things. So, looking forward, as my time is done, and I just accepted a position as the executive director for the Michigan Chemistry Council down here in Lansing. I'll be splitting my time between Marquette and Lansing now, but you still have an advocate meeting, and I would say, as a new representative takes my place, utilize her, ask her questions, be involved, because the more you're involved and the more you let her know what's important to you and things you like, don't like, that's how she's going to be successful in making sure that she gets the work done that you need to be done. So continue to be great advocates. I really think for townships in the UP, you guys are leading the way in terms of always being out there in the forefront, just leading in terms of being involved and stepping up, even if they're difficult conversations. Many of you have called me and never held back from telling me what you think, and that's the way it should be. I think a lot of people want to avoid conflict, but the only way you solve problems is if you get that honesty and you get some feedback on the job you're doing. So I want to thank you all for allowing me that opportunity, giving me that opportunity, but most importantly, working with me through my 5 years down in Lansing.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Does anybody have any questions for
Thank you.
Sarah? All right, well, good luck, and thanks for zooming in. We
Yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you. And, as I said before, even though I'm not in that official role as your representative, I'm still in Lansing, and more people that can help you advocate for things you need, the better. So just, if you ever need anything, still pick up the phone, and, I'll help you any way I can.
That's great. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good luck with your job.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. Next up is community linkage. Anybody have anything to share? What are you hearing from the public? Nobody stopping? I have a few things to share. We're gonna try something new. We've got, I'm calling it kind of our first annual Community Safety Forum. March 29th, it's a Wednesday night, the last Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock here in the community room. We're going to have the fire department, the sheriff's department, and UPSET, which is the Peninsula Substance Enforcement Team, on the drug side. And they're gonna have a couple hours, probably have some coffee and donuts or something, and just give you a chance to see what's going on the safety side of your community. You can ask questions. They may have, I don't know, I didn't ask them, I said just put something together. I know that UPSET has a half-hour presentation that will knock your socks off. I asked him to keep it to a half an hour. He said he can do 2 hours.
Yes, I know we can do 2 hours.
And the sheriff's department, I don't know what they've got. Our deputy left. I can't ask him. Fire department, they may be handing out, I don't know, smoke alarms or something, but it should be interesting. I'd like to see us do this every year so that we can stay in touch with those people, because they're the ones that are on the front lines for us. They're out there every day helping us, and they need that rapport and they need that feedback, just like Sarah said. They need to hear from us. So March 29th at 6 p.m. right here. That's one thing. 6 p.m. It's on the back of your, it should be on the back of your utility calendar too. I think that got in there in time. And then if you want to check your calendars, we had asked the Marquette County Road Commission for a joint meeting. And they're looking at May 17th at 3 o'clock. And if you can let me know now if that works, I can get back to them right away. Otherwise, send me an email or a text. 3 o'clock. It's right before our meeting. So, we don't have to go to them, they're coming to us, which is very nice. 3 o'clock, May 17th. So we've got a few months yet. But since they only meet once a month, it's important for them to schedule it out far enough. Does that seem to work for everybody
Okay here?
so far?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give them an okay, and then if something changes, let me know. The other thing is, I'm still looking for a board of review volunteer. It's gonna be too late for this March session, but we do have another session in July and one in December. So that would be someone who has some building, contracting, construction background. Could be somebody retired or still working, it doesn't matter. The scope of the job is March board review to listen to folks as they come in with issues about their property taxes or exemptions that they feel they might have. There is training. It's a 2-year term. There's 1 year left on this term, or you'd be a year and a half. We're going to be doing March board of review the 13th and 14th this year, in case anybody needs to come in and talk to us. I am a secretary. I'm not one of the board members. There are 3 township residents who are who make up the board of review, and they're separate from the township board or staff or anything else. But anyway, I need a 3rd person. The next meeting will be in July. It probably takes an hour, and the meeting after that will be December. That takes about an hour. So there's not a huge commitment over the course of the year, but it does require some state training that you can do on Zoom, and the 2 members I have right now completed theirs Monday, actually, online. I think it's an hour or 2, I forget. And then the March board of review is 6 hours one day and 6 hours the next day. So over the course of the year, it's not a big commitment, but it is very vital because you're helping your fellow residents with tax issues. And I also have one more opening on the Downtown Development Authority, and that would be someone, you'd have to probably look at the downtown, the DDA map to know if you're in that area, but it would be someone who has property and interest or a home in the DDA area to be on that board. So feel free to reach out to me if anybody is interested in either one of those positions. did bring the paper. Tonight's paper was full of stuff tonight. Electric vehicles in Marquette, they bought some. We did get, I guess John said we already got our money. We got the announcement, we received $103,000 from the state for our marijuana establishments that we have in the township. And there was also an article, is it Iron Mountain, Iron River? That, if you remember, I think it was our last board meeting, we passed 2 resolutions supporting Senator McBroom's dark store efforts on what he's trying to get accomplished. And there was an article in here tonight, of course I can't find it, it was either Iron Mountain or Iron River, now I can't remember. I think it was Iron Mountain. Passed resolutions for the same thing. Because I had sent what we had, we got one from the county, and I sent that around to a few people. So they may have even used ours. And the last thing I was gonna say is, I went out to North Country Disposal today with my bottles, because it's the first Wednesday of the month, brought everything out. They are so great. The girl in the office is sharp and on the ball, showed me where to go. I'd already been there before. By the time I drove back there was a gentleman out there sanding and salting right in front of the dumpster so that I could get up there. And when I backed up, he jumped out and took it out of my car and dumped it in. I mean, they're so helpful. They're the ones that are doing all of our recycling for the rest of the year too. But you can do bottles and cans this month and next month. Or bottles, I'm sorry, just bottles. And then the rest of the recycling starts back up. It's for the summer. But I just wanted to give them kudos. They work pretty hard out there. Anything else, you know? Okay. Onward. 8A has changed the meeting time of April 26th meeting from 5:30 to 5 o'clock. Randy, you had requested this because...
Well, we have a planning commission meeting that evening, so it would be appropriate to bump it back a half hour to 5 o'clock, so I so move that.
Support.
Any issues with that?
Gotta keep the meeting moving that night, so we're out by 7, that's all.
Yes.
Keep it moving.
What time are we starting then?
5.
It's just because we're gonna be gone to, some of us will be gone to Traverse City.
Yeah.
Put it in my book. So Wednesday, the 26th at 5 o'clock.
And I'll post that on the door, so it'll be on the website in the door.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Next, discuss the possibility of township staff printing twice yearly property tax bills and creating the tax roll. This is a discussion that came up. It evolved. Let me get my computer down to the right page, please. Get through that solid waste packet. Okay, you've got the bunch of statistics in your packet, and you can, if you remember, the conversation kind of morphed out. We got into 2 or 3 different topics just from one discussion. But I did do some research to find out what would be involved. The first question was, should we use, and that's one of the motions, but these aren't necessarily ones that I'm recommending. You know, I'm not voting one way or the other on these. I'm giving you examples of what could be discussed. So we had talked about using the back of the tax bills as an information source. And when we discovered, or I discovered that we were getting charged extra for it, I didn't realize that at the time, that kind of set me back a little bit and said, okay, is it worth it? And then I started thinking, well, how many of those people are actually getting their tax bills? Because most are escrowed, most mortgages are escrowed with their banks, and they don't even see their tax bills. They're done automatically, unless they come to the township office and say, I'd like a copy of my tax bill. So there's 2 strikes against that option right off the bat from actually using the tax bills as a way of informing people, because that was where the discussion started. is how do we reach some of these folks who, don't get the paper, they might not see us on TV, they don't have a computer. I have a lady that calls me once in a while, she doesn't have a computer. She wants to catch up, what have you been doing? She doesn't get the paper. So we always try to figure out how we can notify people of anything, especially if it's important. We have a few folks who have given us their email addresses, so if there's something very urgent, we do an email blast. There's about 400 or 500 people, I think, in that group. So again, this was just part of how do we connect with our folks. So I contacted the county and got all of this information, and then I started thinking, well, maybe we should just bring these tax bills back into the township office and have us do them. Is it more cost effective? And that's part of a trustee's job, because we're entrusted with the funds of the public. So we have to ask these questions, whether we even agree with them or not. We have to kind of say, should we continue to do this, or is there another option, or is this a waste of money? Can we do it more efficiently, more effectively, more cost effectively? So this is one of those I just said, why? So first, like I said, the first question really is, should we consider using the back of the tax bills for information purposes?
Good.
Yeah, it seems like it's not. We did
It
do it
just-
once or
just-
twice.
It doesn't make sense, because people, we, over the years, we have found that most people who have a loan don't get that bill. And so all our effort to communicate by using that doesn't make sense. So I think you're right, and we should change that.
And the county did suggest that we could send a separate notice to those people who don't get it at an extra fee. I think it was 2 cents. I don't think I put that in here. It was 2 cents extra. So if you've got the statistics of how many we send out twice a year, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,600 for that get the tax bill, and another almost 1,200 that don't get the tax bill. So I send another 1,200 at 2 cents, plus the postage, plus the cost to have them do it. So that's the first question. Then again, the second question is, do we even consider asking staff to figure out if it would be cost effective to bring it back in-house? Ernie?
Personally, I looked at this and we don't want to even monkey with it. Let the county do it all. For the simple reason that, sure, there's $7,000, but we do not know what's all involved in doing it. We have equipment to do that, but on that equipment, is a print on one side or both sides? The prints on both sides at one time, fine. If not, we have to put it through twice to get it done on that. And the other thing is, if you all remember, in September, the clerk gives us a form that we have to approve as to the millage and that. That millage is sent to the county. The county then takes the responsibility of putting it on our tax bills. If you look at your tax bills that you just recently got, you have the ones for the township on it, which I get a copy of the bill, sample. I go through it and make sure all the data that pertains to the township is right, and the millage that the township has to collect is correct. The other millages, I have no idea. That comes through the county. So if we talk about assuming this, how are we going to know what those other millages are? Who's going to get it to us? Who's going to be responsible for making sure they're correct? So there's too many what-ifs here and that. And then the next thing is staff. Do we have staff to do it all and that? I don't think we want to get into this at this point in time, because I don't know who's going to be responsible for it and that, when you really get into it then. I, as a treasurer, I'm not going to assume that responsibility. There's too many questions here that I have no answers to. I don't know how I'm going to do it. So I think it's going to be a waste of staff time to even go back and go in and try and figure out what's all involved. It's all soft money but it's soft money that we don't have to do in that. There's no hard money involved at this point in time. Sure, there's $7,000 sitting there that they charge us that, but, to prepare the tax bills and that, regardless, we're gonna have to spend that down here. How much, we don't know in that. So that's another problem. So my personal feeling is that we've had a discussion on it. I don't think it's something that we wanna move into. That's my personal feeling on it.
Okay. John?
I think our treasurer's point is well taken. However, I think that we might want to ask staff to give some thought to what can we do to have banks act more responsibly with their loan patrons. I understand the point being made by our treasurer. I think he's got a good point. We should put our staff into looking into that. If we can't really handle that and don't know too many of the answers that need to be given before we get involved in that, I think we should change our attitude to not communicating on the tax bill, but communicating with the banks that aren't really being responsible. And I think if we can get staff to look into that, that would shorten the amount of time involved and make the amount of money involved for doing any research on that. But I think that we can't just keep going on the way we are, because we've got a large number of people who just don't get the messages that they need to get. And I think maybe the point being made by our treasurer is such that let's take our attention to what we could do with banks. That would be my thought.
Linda?
So first off, this was all about communication. Okay, so what we're saying is this isn't an effective way to communicate. So what we need to look at is how can we communicate with our customers, which are our residents. And so you are talking about, as you look at your numbers here, there's 1,600 people that receive a tax bill in the summer, and let's say 1,650 in the winter. So that's really not 3,200, it is 600 people.
No, it's 1,300
It's
or
not
1,600 a year, basically.
correct,
Same
correct.
people.
They're the
Almost
same
the same
people,
people.
correct. So it's not double the
Right.
number. The other part is communication's the issue here. And John, you might think, but it's not our place to go to the banks as a township. That's not our place. That belongs to the owner of the mortgage and their customer. And the customers can get a copy of their tax bill if they ask. So that really is how that works today. The bank is not going, we as a township cannot tell the bank what to do today. So I think we need to look at communication, and if it's only $731 a year that we spend sending a newsletter to every house, isn't that a better option?
This is to send the tax bills out, the separate.
Correct, correct, but you're saying you want to use the tax bill, I think this is what this is all about, to use as a means of communicating.
Right.
Well, so let's look at how we can communicate and not worry about the tax bill.
Differently.
And I agree with Ernie, we probably would get into way too much, and John hasn't even spoken, but I don't think we have staff to do that today. That's my opinion.
I'm not prepared to speak to the matter. I have some opinions on it, but I don't know that they're based in enough fact at this time. I appreciate the research that Supervisor Durant has done on this. I've been involved in the conversation. Is there a possibility we could take this back in-house and do it well? Yes. Am I prepared to say now's the time? No.
That's why we have discussions, that's important. Okay, John?
I think Linda's point is well taken too. But perhaps maybe we would end up simply communicating with our citizens how easy it is to get a copy. I think we might do well to just lean on that a little bit and see whether or not we shouldn't be communicating that suggestion about how easy it would be, or maybe even have a form they could fill out and send in. But you're right, you can't tell the bank what to do, but you can ask the bank and you can tell our own people how they can get a copy.
You can call us, for sure. Dan?
Is there a way that we can find out those that have email and get their email address and just do an email blast when we want to do a communications to, I mean, that, to me, that seems like the thing we should be doing nowadays, is just do an email blast. And I know there's a few that possibly don't have emails, but then we can deal with those people with a regular mailing. And I think the whole problem would be solved.
Yeah, if somebody's willing to give us their address, like I said, there's 400 or 500 people who do provide us with their email address.
We're not that far off then.
But we only use it, well, we've still got quite a bit.
Yeah, a few thousand, but.
We only do that if it's really, really important. You know, we don't give them something every week, because we don't want to bombard people with stuff.
Right, I understand, but.
That's what the meetings are for, too. But yeah, we can just keep publicizing that, for sure. So, these are both, we're saying no, these are both dead issues? That's fine.
Yes.
We'll just keep going with whatever other means we can figure out to communicate with everybody. The website's probably the easiest. Okay, we can move on. Thank you for that. Appreciate that insight. Okay, consider Forestville feasibility study proposal. I know everybody's waiting for this one. John, take it away.
All right. Let's go back to the end of January 1st. We received a modified traffic study from Longyear, which was done at their cost. It was not funded publicly. There was some confusion about that, but wanted to be clear, Longyear funded that study. It was a supplement to the original traffic study they had done sometime last year. I don't remember the date of the original study, but what you see on the screen is one of the alternatives that was proposed in this second study. I consider this to be a idealistic schematic. It's a great idea that probably cannot be built as shown. And there's several reasons why. The majority of them have to do with, number one, constructability. To build it that wide encroaches on too many natural features that will create obstacles through permitting. There's a regulated stream on the west side of County Road 492, more commonly known as Wright Street, that would potentially trigger an EPA review, which would make it very difficult to build in a timely fashion. Site distances are probably the most critical for every leg of what's shown there. The Michigan left turns, the proposed relocation of Forestville, and the existing Commerce Drive leg, although the Commerce Drive leg has the best site distance. So, when this came out, I came to the conclusion that the only way we get to where we need to be in time to seek an appropriation, knowing that appropriations are going to be coming to the forefront of our new legislature in Lansing very quickly, I thought it might be appropriate for the township to fund the comprehensive feasibility study. So I requested a proposal from the people that have been most familiar with this, and it's the same consultant that Longyear used. I realize there may be a perceived conflict of interest there, but if we control the scope and the discussion, I'm not concerned about it. I think engineers are ethical people, and they would formulate their opinions based on the scope of the work, not who started paying them. So we requested a proposal. The proposal came in. It's in your packet, and I actually kind of regret putting it in the packet because I put it in there without having read it myself. It came in right at press time for your packet. Anyone that read the packet over the weekend read it before I did. So I took a closer look at it Monday morning. I realized, number one, the cost is too high for me to recommend you consider funding the whole thing. Number two, it's going to take too long to get done in time to request an appropriation to fix this intersection. So I came to the conclusion, not all on my own, I had a lot of conversations with a lot of people interested in seeing something done there, that fixing the intersection again remains the highest priority of anything that's considered regarding access to Forestville. And this is whether or not a Longyear development ever happens. Remember, we have nothing to consider from them yet. They certainly are interested in submitting something to us. They understand that transportation issues are part of the problem there, which is why they funded 2 traffic studies, okay? If we want to do our part in fixing what some have said is the most dangerous intersection on the Road Commission's network, we have one opportunity that has to be done in March of 2023. It guarantees nothing, but it gives us an opportunity. If we can define a scope of a project with an opinion of probable cost, we can seek an appropriation in Lansing. But we have to determine that by the end of March of 2023. So, I don't have anything new for you to consider other than a request, and that is, we have $30,000 budgeted this year for engineering. We had not earmarked that for any specific project. I'm asking you to consider earmarking it for this project to complete 50% engineering plans, so that's 50% of final design, halfway there, so that they can formulate an opinion of probable cost because the design is close enough to estimate with some contingency. Define that scope, get consensus with the Road Commission, and that's very important to me because right now we don't have that. Get support of the City of Marquette, Northern Michigan, NTN, anyone we need to. Hopefully the folks in Huron Woods, the folks in Blue Heron Bluffs, to fix that intersection. I know that was part of what you had asked to be the focus, along with a connection, possible connection to the east. I have a little bit more to add on that. I've touched on it briefly in the past. There is a possibility to connect to the east, but that possibility has a very high likelihood of displacing someone from their home. If it involves displacing someone from their home, that will be an initiative that has to be led by this body because the Road Commission won't touch it. They've made that perfectly clear for obvious reasons. I'm not sure that I would recommend that you consider it either if there's an option to fix what we already have. I wanted Clerk Rattari to show this on the screen because that's the general concept, but I also wanted to be perfectly clear that it just cannot look as shown. What's shown is a very simplified picture of the idea. It's a boulevard type concept, so it eliminates the left-hand turns from Commerce Drive and Forestville Road on to County Road 492. And those are the 2 turning movements that are already a problem there. That's what makes it a dangerous intersection. It's not left turns off of County Road 492 to either of those legs, it's onto, okay? So this boulevard type concept would eliminate those left-hand turn movements, and then you have to figure out anyone coming out of there that wants to go the way that a left-hand turn would have brought them. How do you get them back going there? So that's where the Michigan lefts come in. We don't know yet where they would have to be located, if they can be located within the existing right-of-way, what the impacts would be to private property, what kind of acquisition would be needed. But I believe with the engineering budget we have, we can work out a agreement with Wade Trim to get us 50% engineering plans and a preliminary opinion of probable cost. Engineers came up with that phrase, by the way, with some help from attorneys, I think. That's why I can't say it. And give us a chance at getting that appropriation to fix this intersection once and for all. I want everyone to be clear that I understand the problem is with the intersection, and fixing that should be priority one, and that's where my emphasis is. I hope you all agree with me. So my recommendation is to authorize us to proceed with a not-to-exceed budget of $30,000 to finalize the scope with Wade Trim to get the 50% complete plans done and the preliminary opinion of probable cost. Say that 5 times quickly.
And as you said, that still doesn't guarantee us the money for the project itself, but it gives us the opportunity to say, so to people in Lansing, we need this money, this is what it's gonna cost to fix this intersection for not only the general public, but for the developers to move forward.
Correct.
The road commission doesn't have the money, we don't have the money, it could be 2 million, it could be 10 million, we have no idea.
It's gonna be an expensive project. I wouldn't be surprised if it's right between the two numbers you just said. 2 is probably pretty low, 10 is a little high, I would think, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's only a little high. Building a boulevard for however long it has to be could get expensive quickly. The other thing I didn't mention is this boulevard type cross section would have to stay within the existing road footprint at the intersection because of those natural features that exist. It's possible that they could expand it, but it would increase the permitting involved and the impacts to natural features there. So it would move those Michigan left-hand turns further down the corridor in each direction. The closer you go to the city, the narrower the right-of-way gets, and it's more limited on what type of right-of-way widening you could do because of existing residential properties. That might be the most challenging aspect that they have to figure out, whether or not you can even get a Michigan left for, call it eastbound to southbound traffic. Eastbound from Commerce to southbound on 492. It's entirely possible that if you make that movement, you have to go and find somewhere down the road to turn around and come back. Meaning people will learn to find another way to get out there. They won't go that way. Some signage would help, that kind of thing, but this is a very tricky intersection. The road commission has acknowledged when they accepted it, it was built the way it is now, just not to the current level of improvement. At the time, it was only an access road to the dam. That was a long time ago. Unfortunately, a lot has happened since then. Anyway, that's what I know, and you have my recommendation.
Great summation. Linda, did you have a point?
Well, I think what people need to understand is whether or not more houses are built back in that area, that doesn't make the intersection any safer. So the intersection, is my understanding, is dangerous today. It's dangerous for the people coming out of there. Okay, so we as a township are looking at making it safe for the people today. If it gets more people back there, well, yes, we want it safe for them. But our job is to look at what's safe for the people who are there. So it's a dangerous intersection, I keep hearing. You know, I have a solution, but they probably wouldn't like it, you know? So we'll talk about that when it's my turn to talk about that.
What else, anybody? Ernie?
Just listening to John and reading all the documentation here, we have to move forward. And I think he's given us a direction to go at this point in time. Sure, it's gonna cost us $30,000, but if we don't do it, we're still gonna be right where we are right now, nothing. And the development is coming, whether it's along here right now or what the future's gonna bring. We have to address the problems. And we need to step up right now and at least take the first step and see what's gonna happen in that too. And if we're fortunate enough to get some dollars shooken free from downstate, that's a big if, but we have to take the steps to maybe grease the skids a little bit, so we have a chance to get it that too. So if you want, I can make the motion. I don't have all the wording that John had in that.
I can repeat it if you'd like.
Please repeat it, because
Authorize staff to work with Wade Trim on a proposal not to exceed $30,000 for the 50% complete engineering plans and preliminary opinion of probable cost.
I'll support that.
Dan, did you have your hand up too?
I was gonna make the
Oh, okay.
Ernie beat me to it.
Okay, that's
We
fine.
got it done though.
John?
I want to ask our manager, if this passes, are we saddled at all with the location showing where the truck traffic would enter Forestville Road?
I don't think any of this is proposing to make Forestville Road a Class A truck route. This proposal is maintaining through traffic on County Road 492 for the trucks heading north and south.
Okay.
The Forestville leg, honestly, I don't think they're gonna be able to relocate it to where it's shown in this drawing because it significantly impairs the sight distance
Okay.
to the northeast for anyone trying to exit the Forestville leg. There's a vertical curve and a horizontal curve there. Part of the final design might be to flatten out the vertical curve a little bit to improve the sight distance and maybe even straighten out the horizontal curve. But I think it's too early for us to suggest what that might look like because we don't have 50% complete engineering plans yet.
Okay, really, if they go ahead and show us some planning, then we would know that you could have this kind of a conceptual design, but you wouldn't know exactly where ingress and egress would be from Forestville Road.
Yeah, I would guess, just based on the protected status of the stream in that northwest quadrant, the existing location is and the site distance on 492. The existing location or alignment of the Forestville leg is maybe the best spot. That being said, that's just my gut instinct as from my engineering experience. So I could be completely wrong on that. If they show that they can straighten out the curves to the northeast, maybe they could move it to that location without putting too much significant impact on that regulated stream. But once you enclose impact 300 feet of it, it triggers an EPA review, and I don't think anyone's really interested in getting to that level. The Forestville leg is still going to be probably the biggest challenge of the whole design, I think.
Thank you.
But with this boulevard intersection, it doesn't have to completely align with commerce either, so there is flexibility going this route.
Does that stream, is there a possibility that can go underground, or is that something that the EPA would not allow?
If I remember correctly from my conversation with the road commission, they met with the Eagle rep out there. the state rep, and he said if you impact more than 300 feet of it, it would trigger the EPA review, and there would also be wetland mitigation considerations. So it's a lot more permitting and a lot more cost that has zero benefit to traffic movement, but is obviously an environmental factor that needs to be considered.
Anything else?
One last thing, this is probably a 20-year fix. So beyond that, we're probably back to the drawing board on what the road network has to look like. I'm not gonna suggest anything because a lot of things can happen between now and then. And who knows? Maybe we never see the demand for an increase in the road network. It's too early to tell.
Just want to also say to our residents that we did not forget what you guys came in and said before, and we've definitely taken that into consideration, and we're trying to get this fixed the best we can for everybody involved.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Good suggestion, John.
I can't take all the credit. There were a lot of smart people helping me along the way.
Okay, you're up again. Declare old wide format printer scanner surplus.
This one should be much quicker.
Yes,
We have the new one
controversial.
installed and operating. The old one is now obsolete. It was obsolete before we got the new one. We need to try to find a new home for it. I think there might be some interest. I guess we'll see what we can get for it if you declare it surplus.
Move to accept the recommended motion.
Support surplus.
Okay, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 1 minute, that's pretty good. Consider Township Hall design build proposal.
All right, I don't think you even have anything in your packet on this one because
No.
we just got the final cost yesterday, I believe. It's not gonna fit our budget this year. We had budgeted 20,000, predicted as high as 50, and it's actually more than that. The final number is down from 59 to 55. I recommend we postpone the project for a year and budget the remainder of the cost for next year, but we're gonna have to budget for some inflation because it'll be more than 55 when we bid it again. So, let's keep in mind, this was a design build proposal. We could potentially consider some other options. I guess it'll depend on how much time staff has to work on it between now and then, but we could have something ready to go for next January. Contractors are saying it's a nice winter project, but if they're busy with all of the other stimulus money that's about to be put out on the streets by all of the neighboring communities, we might have competition for the limited contractors that are out there. So I'm just suggesting that we not spend that much money on this project. We find ways to deal with the inconveniences of what we have in the meantime, but plan better for it maybe next year.
Does everyone understand what he's talking about?
The fishbowl project,
Yeah.
getting rid of the cubicles and putting in permanent walls, creating an office for the treasurer and his deputy, and replacing the second conference room that had become the staff planner's office.
And addressing a lot of the HVAC issues. We've got heating and cooling issues that we didn't want to tackle.
And that's not even included in the 55.
That's true too.
We do have 50,000 in the budget for this year to start replacing windows. We'll start looking at that next. I'm not holding out much hope that we're gonna get a whole lot done with 50,000 this year, but maybe we'll get lucky. We'll see. That's, once we get the windows replaced, then I think we can take that good hard look at the mass balancing of the HVAC system and improve the consistency of the heating and cooling in that part of the building.
Okay. You want a motion, John? Or just
No,
not
there's
worry
no
about it?
action.
No action would be fine.
Okay.
unless there's an objection to my recommendation.
Doesn't look like it. I think you're good. Okay, the planning commission report.
The planning commission did not meet.
About the rec committee.
Yeah, we met, I asked Jason today if he had the minutes done, and he did not. Basically, what we talked about, we did elect officers. We had chair would be Joe Shutter, vice chair is Christy McBride, secretary Tom Fuhrer, and we discussed the wellhead project about building a trailhead there for the bike path and possibly putting in, it's just preliminary stages right now, putting in a restroom or type of a restroom, outhouse, basically glorified outhouse, and much further to discuss on this in the future.
So trailhead down by the well.
Trailhead right up by Grove Street,
Okay.
and then out to the existing trail along the golf course.
Okay. Any public comment? Anybody else want to share their views before we move on? Okay. How about announcements? Anything? Randy?
Yeah, the residents should be getting their absentee application for those that are on the absentee list in the near future. They're getting printed starting this week. And again, I outsource this because we don't have the staff to do it. And the approximate cost with proposal 2, because now we have to include postage to and from. But we will be reimbursed from the state for the postage. And we will get reimbursed for the printing and mailing of the applications by the ISD that's requesting the millage. And the cost for all that is going to be about $3,200 and some dollars. So that's a little bit over my expenditure, but I had to go forward to get this done. So, but it's all going to be reimbursed. So it's really going to cost us very little. And that's about it for now. There will be no early voting for this election. Early voting will be for primarily state and federal elections. Local municipalities will have the option for special elections, but that will not happen until 2024. But the postage for to and from will be implemented in this election. So any ballots that go out will have postage for the folks to return. So it's not going to cost anyone anything to get their application sent back and their ballot sent back. And also, pay attention on your application, because with proposal 2, there's going to be a little box on there that you can check, and then you'll get you won't have to send an application any longer to get a ballot. We'll send it out as soon as we get them. So it'll be easier for folks. If you're on that permanent ballot list, as soon as we get the ballots for the election, you'll get one. And we'll have your permanent application on file. So that makes it easier for the absentee people. Less confusing, less steps. So that's trying to make voting easier. So that's all I have for now.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay. Manager's report.
I'll try to be brief. The first item on my report, we spent a significant amount of time discussing today, and it took up a significant amount of my time over the last 2 weeks. I anticipate it will for the next month as well. It's a very fast-moving subject, but I do hope that we'll find a solution for that intersection, and we will get the support to seek that appropriation. And based on everything I'm hearing, there's plenty of support for it currently, as long as we can get to that consensus with the road commission on what the project looks like. So, and then what the amount of the appropriation would be. Secondly, Jason McCarthy and I met with two of the new property owners off of Fly Ash Road. Must have been a week or 2 weeks ago now. And we discussed specifically impacts of their ownership to existing trails. There is the Nokamanon Ski Marathon Trail, the North Country Trail, the Pine Knob Trail, Wildcat Trail on these portions of their property. They seem to be in agreement that the recreational use that currently exists is probably going to be the best long-term use for that portion of the property on the south side of the Fly Ash Road. So there will be an effort to try to figure out how to either acquire it so that it's in recreational or maintained for recreational use in perpetuity, and then anything on the north side of that road can remain for its intended use, which is resource harvesting. So logging, sand gravel pits, whatever that ends up being. But the property owners are in agreement that those trails are significant enough, and that's a big deal for the township and the region. So I think everyone knows what the Nokamanon Ski Marathon does for Marquette County every winter. And then the North Country Trail is obviously pretty famous, far beyond Marquette. And then the North Trails of NTN are pretty popular too. So the challenge will be figuring out how to make that acquisition cash flow and who ends up being the owner. There'll be plenty of discussion to come. Last week, if you drove by Township Hall, you probably noticed the employee parking lot was pretty empty. Most of our employees hit spring break before the college kids. I think it was a smart idea. I'm hoping they all came back recharged. I'd like to say that I'm heading on spring break soon, but I can't guarantee that that's gonna happen. I've got some things to take care of first. We'll see. But anyway, that did impact our responsiveness on a few of these things. With Lenny gone, he's obviously pretty critical on a lot of our infrastructure stuff. You'll hear from him in 2 weeks. I guess that's about it.
Any questions, the manager? Okay, thanks. You want to review our motions?
Okay, first, excuse me, first motion was consent agenda as presented was approved. Second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented, that was approved. The third motion was to change the meeting time of April 26th to 5 p.m., and that was approved. The fourth motion was to authorize staff to work with weight trim for not to exceed $30,000 to consider the Forestville feasibility study proposal, and that was approved. And the fifth motion was to declare the wide format printer scanner as surplus, and that was approved.
Thank you. So on the next agenda, I did add, Linda asked me to add the marijuana discussion, since we know, Tom said we got the money today for that allocation. So we'll talk about it next meeting and see what we think we need to do with it. We've talked about a lot of different options. So that's the only thing I have right now for the next agenda. Any other comments? Our next meeting's March 15th at 5:30, just so everybody remembers. Dan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I had a discussion with the local contractor, Brian Lancourt, and he wanted to pass on how much Eric Powers has been willing to work with him, and he just couldn't say enough about the everything that he did to help him in getting permits and getting everything straightened out and going through, and had a lot of good things to say about the young man.
That's great. Good to hear. Ernie?
Well, I attended the Township Business Association meeting. A number of things came up. Beginning of the year, the election of officers, and it's pretty much just whoever was officers before continue to be officers, and that there was no change at all in that. They talked about their website. They have a website up for all the businesses who are members, so they can go on there, and it gives a lot of good information, so you have a chance to take a look at their website, and that, it's interesting to see what's out there in that. They talked about the car show, the Christmas, and community days. They are supporting all three of them. Now with the car show and the Christmas being in the private hands at this point in time, they are still supporting it. And the entity that has the car show and the Christmas one, specifically the car show, they're out, how do I want to put it? Getting support from the community for financial support for doing all that. So it sounds like it's moving forward in that, and it's all positive at this point in time in that. As far as community days, they want to stay involved with that in any way they can. So there's some dollars associated with that. How much, it's hard to say in that, but they're willing to do that. They're always looking for membership, so if you know a business in town to get involved with it, they're always looking for that end of it. And I don't know if the township can become part of that membership or not. I have no idea in that too, so that may be something I need to talk with the manager to see if something like that can be possible in that too, so, in that. But, be interesting to see. But they are trying to do good things for the township. I'm trying to get the word out for everyone as what's happening here, and their website, if you've get on there, you'll see that there's a lot of good information there. In that. If you have a few minutes, just take a shot at it and see what happens in that too, so.
Okay. Anything else, Linda?
So, the Community Days Planning Group met today. So, we will have Community Days this year, and, we had lots of discussion, came up with some different ideas. We'll be meeting again in 2 weeks, which is March 15th at 4 p.m. And we'd love to have more people come, and help us plan this event.
We're at,
Right here at Marquette Township Hall, so put it on your agenda. I have a job for everyone, so don't think you're,
don't say that, no one
don't
will
feel
show up.
bad. Everybody will have a nice little job to do. From maybe making popcorn to scooping ice cream to playing in a pickleball tournament. So some people's faces should be lighting up.
Sounds good. What else?
I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.
You're not gonna get.
6:42.
Keep checking,